Okay, I think I'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max Krug. I'm a TOC practitioner for several years. I put this presentation together to talk about accelerating results. So I'm talking about not only accelerating results within companies, but also accelerating results with myself on how I can touch more companies and have more impact. So I talk about accelerating results, I'm talking about getting impact and being able to touch many more companies or organizations. So I'm a common sense type of guy, hands-on approach. So I like tools that I can use that are effective and achieve the results I'm trying to get for my business and for companies. So what I've learned is it's all about buy-in and getting alignment with leadership. So what I found is in companies, from my experience, if there's no leadership buy-in, less than 20% chance the company's going to make significant change. Also, if there's no strategy, less than 20% chance that the company is going to make change. So you can imagine no strategy, no buy-in, less than 4% chance company's going to make a transition, okay? So I've tried to integrate common sense tools along with the thinking processes to achieve buy-in rapidly and to start getting results rapidly, okay? So that's what my presentation's about. So when I saw it presenting late in the conference, I was worried that people weren't going to come to my presentation, that they were going to leave early. But I looked at the positive side, so I've actually integrated everything I've learned the last couple of days into my presentation. So if you've downloaded the presentation, this is a new download, so download the new PDF because I've integrated some new things I've learned over the last couple of days into the training, into the workshop. So some of the learning objectives, right, it's about getting the right mindset within organizations. So got to make sure we get leadership aligned and we get buy-in. So buy-in to me is we all agree on what to change and what to change to. Alignment is we all agree that these are the first actions we're going to take, the second actions, third actions, right? So alignment and buy-in together, okay? So how to integrate some concepts from Lean and Six Sigma. These tools have been out there for a long time, right? Try not to create something new, use what's already out there that works into how to decide what to change to, and how to cause the change. And also how to apply different methods to the thinking processes to achieve buy-in, to get rapid achievement and team buy-in and alignment. So first of all, how do we overcome layer zero? Okay, layer zero is why change. So it doesn't matter if you're working with an organization or a team within your organization, right? If we have resistance to why do we need to change, these are techniques that I've used to overcome layer zero, okay? So overcoming resistance involves understanding several things. What are the needs of the business? What are the needs of the customer? How well is the organization satisfying those needs? And what obstacles are preventing the organization from improving, okay? So techniques I use to do this, one is called a force field analysis. So a force field analysis defines the pressures against and for change. And also what I use is a throughput model. So a throughput model defines the amount of leverage associated with any change, okay? So again, if you have a team, right, that's struggling to make change, what's the objective the team's trying to achieve and what needs are they trying to satisfy from a higher level for the organization, right? Defining those needs. Okay, so if I look at a force field analysis, we define on the left-hand side forces for change, and on the right-hand side forces against change. So if I'm working with a management team that says, I don't understand why we need to change, first thing I want to do is say, okay, let's talk about the needs of your business. What are the needs of your business? So I hear things like, oh, we want to be profitable, we want good product quality, we want to control cost, we need market diversification, We need to be able to introduce new products rapidly, for example. Those are the needs of the business. So then I ask them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being really good, 5 being not so good, how are we performing as an organization against those things? So on profitability, how are we doing? Okay, so they might say, oh, that's on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being we're not so great on profitability, right? So I have the team score themselves on the needs that they've defined for the organization, okay? So then ask yourself, so why, if profitability is not so great, why haven't you done something about it? So the forces against change. Okay, so these are really the obstacles that are preventing the company from improving. So have a discussion with them, okay, what's preventing you from improving profitability? And then get group consensus on what those obstacles are and how difficult is it to overcome those obstacles. So one key here is don't argue with them with what's the needs of the business, right? They're in a certain mindset, in a certain place today. Don't argue, oh, I don't agree, those are the needs of the business, right? Let them define the needs, let them define the obstacles, and then score the obstacles on how difficult they think that is to overcome. Okay, so typically we get consensus that yes, there is opportunity for change. So I also do the same thing on looking at the needs of the customer, right? So we have the needs of the business, we have the needs of the customer. So for their customer, or whoever your customer is, if you're internal to a company, who's your customer that you're doing this initiative for, what are their needs? So could be lead time, could be quality of product, could be reliability, could be price, could be innovation, right? So these are different needs than the needs of the business. Go through the same exercise. How are we doing on lead time compared to our competitors? How are we doing on product quality in the field? How are we doing on reliability, okay? So let them score them, and then again, identify the obstacles that are preventing them from reducing lead time if lead time is important for the customers. And we can also score them. So now I get management consensus on these are the needs of our business and needs of our customers, and I also get alignment on agreement on how we're performing against those needs. Okay, this typically helps me get past the first layer of resistance of why change. Okay, so if I get agreement, yes, we need to change, and through this process, I've identified a bunch of obstacles that the management team feels that they can't overcome in achieving these improvements in the business. The second tool is a throughput model. So once I understand the needs, the obstacles, now I can put it into a throughput model and understand what would be the impact if we had change. So the good thing is I don't need their financial numbers to do this model. It's all based on percentages. So okay, currently our sales is 100%. What's our material cost or totally variable cost? So I put total variable cost in parentheses because in their current state they don't understand what totally variable cost is. So I said, okay, what's material cost as a percentage of your sales? Oh, it's about 30%. Okay, so that gives me a throughput of 70%. If they don't know their operating expense, but they know their net profit, right, I can back into operating expense, say, okay, my net profit is 5%, so my operating expense has to be 65%. Okay? So what if we could get 20% more with our current system? What would that mean for the business? So 20% more would be 120%. Now I need to take 20% more on materials, which is 36%. That gives me a throughput of 84%. And if we could do it with existing resources and not add any expense, right, what would that be? But they don't believe that can happen. So I said, well, operating expense might go up a little bit. So let's say it goes up 4%. What impact would that be? That turns into a 15% net profit. So for a 20% improvement in sales, it's a 3x improvement in net profit. Okay, so this is a simple throughput model you can use I don't need their financials. I need to know what percentages their material is of sales. I need a rough idea of their net profit, and I can do this analysis quickly with the team. So now I have two pieces: the needs of the businesses, the needs of the business and the needs of the customer, the obstacles preventing them from improving, and what's the leverage if we could improve. Typically, this gets them past layer 0. Okay, so now they agree, okay, there is opportunity, what's the next step? So now we got to overcome layer 1. So now we're in layer 1. Layer 1 is disagreement on the problem, right? So nobody agrees on what the problem is. So I went to Deborah Smith's presentation on the first day, and she had a statement that said, people can't follow you if you don't speak their language. So the key to this step is you have to speak the company language, right? You can't go in and speak a language about TOC or Lean or Six Sigma. It has to be the language that's spoken within the company, okay? So you got to use their terminology, their acronyms to get help with the buy-in process. So it gives the perception you understand their business. So disagreement on the problem, overcoming resistance here involves the current reality, the current mode of operation, the current culture, and the techniques I use to overcome this is the current reality tree, which we've been a lot of discussion over the last few days on current reality, and also a current value stream map. So I'm going to put on my lean hat here. So value stream mapping is a technique that's used to map the flow. So yesterday, Ellie Schregenheim and Rocco and Henry talked about the flow of value. The value stream map documents that flow of value. So from Jim Cox's presentation yesterday, he talked about inherent categories. So I'm talking about rapid current reality tree development here. So the inherent categories in a company, I have the 4 plant configurations, V, A, T, and I, but I also have 4 operation types. Make to stock, make to order, configure to order, and engineer to order. So I take these inherent categories, I can put them into a 16-box matrix. So companies say, oh, we're different. Yes, I agree, you're different, but you fit into one of these 16 boxes. The one thing I do see that's different in companies is culture. Every culture is different. So how we address the culture in this process is extremely important. So remember on the previous slide I talked about you need to understand the current culture. So there's a 3D to this. So I have these 16 generic plant operation type configurations, and the depth of this is the variability in mix. So I can have a high mix environment or a low mix environment, okay? So that's just where they are in the depth of the cube here. So for example, this box here is a configure to order A plant with high variability in mix. Okay, so if I understand that that's their environment, I can start building a rapid current reality tree, because what I see is in these 16 generic types, there's common undesirable effects across all businesses. But there's unique characteristics in an A plant configure to order environment that's not in any of the other environments. So how can I deal with that? So now I'm going to put on my Six Sigma hat. I can use a fault tree analysis. So a fault tree analysis is a top-down analysis starting with the effects and the initiating faults and events in a complex system. Okay, so if I use a fault tree analysis in combination with a series of questions, I can start to understand the UDIs, and are they evident in their environment? And if they are, I can start rapidly building a current reality tree. So here's a fault tree analysis. So don't get caught up in the details of what's in the fault tree, but think about the concept. So if I have low profitability, there's 3 potential faults that could contribute to that: poor margin, low sales, or poor flow. If I look under poor margin, could be high cost or other faults that could be creating that. So now what I found is, from all my experience, when I want to rapidly touch more companies, I can't be the constraint. So I need a way to scale myself, right? So if I can put my knowledge into a fault tree, now anybody can go in and start looking for evidence that these elements are in the company or not. Okay, so I've identified a whole bunch of different faults, and now I can start looking at, okay, if it's poor margin, I want to talk to the salesperson or the finance department. If it's low sales, I'm going to talk to the sales department. If it's poor flow, I'm going to talk to the operations group, and I can start validating, do these faults exist in your organization or not? And again, there's generic ones that are across all companies. There's specific ones for each environment. So now, if I validate the faults within the organization, I can quickly build a CRT. So this is in the same logic thinking that WiseTech's using, right? So I have certain logic that, yes, these faults happen, and I know the cause of those faults, right? I already have the logic built. So now I can take this section of the tree and insert it into my current reality tree. So now I can rapidly build a current reality tree within a couple days of their current environment. The second piece is a current state value stream map. Okay, so value stream map is a lean technique, so now I'm putting on my lean hat, that documents the current information and product flow. Okay, so if you're not familiar with a value stream map, on the upper half of the value stream map is information flow. Starts with the customer, flows through to their suppliers. On the bottom is the product flow. Material comes in, flows from suppliers to customers, and delivered to customers. So this is a high-level map of how they currently operate. So now I have all their current undesirable effects and how they currently operate. I know more about their business than they know themselves. So what's nice about this is I can see where there's convergent points in the flow, and I can see where there's divergent points in the flow. And when I start to develop product families, this is my input to developing product families to be able to establish reliable lead times for various product families. But nobody's ever looked at their organization this way and described it to them this way. Okay, so now I have the basis of what the change in the current reality tree and what their current mode of operation is. Right, this defines their current mode of operation. So I saw a lot of presentations where people were putting up flow diagrams. I'm just standardized on this one because value stream mapping is right, the lean community uses value stream mapping. Don't reinvent the wheel, okay? So now I got to the point where I got agreement on what to change. Now we got to move to what to change to. So now we're going to talk about overcoming layer 2 resistance. So disagreement on the direction of the solution. Okay, so what we want to understand here is the future reality, the future mode of operations, and the impact on the current culture. So Jerry Kendall said, always remember the people, right? You gotta be cognizant of the culture in the organization. Every organization's culture is different. How I deal with them is different. I'm just trying to figure out how to scale that, but that's another presentation. So what I'm using here is the future reality tree, a goal tree, and a future state value stream map defining how value should flow. Okay, so what I do is I take the current reality tree. In a group setting with the leadership team, we go through the tree, we agree on the problem, and sets the stage for the future reality tree. So techniques I've used, so for example, in the future reality tree, if I'm having trouble getting buy-in from a certain person when I'm doing the interviews, I'll purposely make the current reality tree wrong, and in this session, they correct it, so nope, that's not right. Okay, correct it for me. I got their buy-in. So the future reality tree, they put the injections into the future reality tree, and now they have buy-in on what to change to. I put that into a goal tree. So a goal tree, we're taking the injections and we're sequencing them. So this is the how-to, and then we create what we call critical success factors. This is the what for, right? Our overall goal of what we're trying to achieve, and the critical success factors to achieve that. These are all the injections that support this critical success factor. Now I can put my KPIs in place. So we define the KPIs that support our goal and the KPIs to measure each of our critical success factors. So my rule of thumb is no more than 5 KPIs. So KPIs is like the vital signs of the company, right? So my personal vital signs, if I know my blood pressure, my temperature, and my heart rate, I'm in pretty good health, right, if they're in normal limits. Same thing with a company. If the KPI is within normal limits, the company is fairly healthy.
How do you integrate in the KPIs?
So we look at this critical, so we define this critical success factor for them, and then I sort of coach them through what KPIs would make that, so they're more throughput productivity type. I want a couple that are internal focused KPIs and a couple that are external focused KPIs. So I always find, so I've done several of these, so what I find is there's always a section on the people and culture, there's always a section on planning, there's always a section on execution and improvement. So those are in every tree that I've done. Then some companies have problems with quality, so there might be a quality one also, but that can be integrated into the productivity one. So the management team defines the KPI. So what we're looking for is necessary and sufficient here. So to achieve this, are these things necessary, right, which they should be because they came out of the future reality tree, and second thing, are they sufficient? If these 5 success factors are in place, does that achieve the goal? If not, there was something missing. But if we agree that these are all necessary and sufficient, then we establish the KPIs for each of these critical success factors. So now I got what to change to. Now I got the measurements to support that we can measure, monitor going forward, and we need immediate feedback. So most of these KPIs, I want a weekly feedback, right? We're not gonna wait till the end of the quarter and say, oh, that didn't work. What did we do 3 months ago? Nobody remembers that, but they probably remember what they did a couple days ago. Then we start using the value stream map as the tool to communicate and decide what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3. So I like to do future state value stream maps about 3 months out. So in 3 months, what are we going to accomplish and what's it going to look like? So we start using the value iterations of the future state value stream map to plan and execute against. So then we set up project teams to achieve these initiatives. So again, on the goal tree, these are what we need to do, not how we need to do it, right? So when we go to the value stream map, these are the hows. And if we put that in place, what's our inventory profile look like? So you see I got some simple things with some lead times for different value streams here, and putting buffer management in place, and getting a scheduling process in place to promise based on capacity, not, oh, we're 4 weeks lead time, okay? So we need to get stability first before we can get significant growth. Okay, so the lesson I learned is same thing with my business. I can't scale something that's not repeatable and reproducible. So I'm trying to create tools here that give me the ability to be repeatable and reproducible. So now if I go into any environment and I understand where they fit in that 16-box matrix, I have an intuition about what some of the things I should be looking for. I build the fault tree for generic, and then I have fault trees for specific environments. Go in and validate that these things are happening. If yes, I can rapidly build the current reality tree. Okay, thank you. I'd like to take questions now. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. There's my contact.
Just about did you say that you have a pre-built current reality tree based off of what the kind of generic things that you feel like are going to come up, and then you're just validating that?
Yep, so I have generic templates made,
Yeah.
and then I go and validate that. Is this in their environment? And I'm also updating that current reality tree with their current language.
Okay.
So I've been in companies that are engineer to order. One of the things that they have unique in that environment is the customer needs to come in and do an acceptance test. Well, one company calls it a final inspection, another one calls it a factory acceptance test, right? So I put that language in the current reality tree, so it's their tree.
And do you find the fact that you've done that, I know you said you kind of make little tweaks to make it wrong to increase adoption, but do you feel like not allowing them to put the actual current reality tree together kind of holds back on that adoption a bit?
I haven't had that experience. So I'm not trying to teach them the thinking processes, I'm trying to get rapid buy-in. So I'm doing the interviews. I want to be able to have other people do the interviews so that using the fault tree, right, just go in and validate these things. My next step is to put that in an expert system where someone can answer questions, right, and I can get feedback based on their questions of what issues they're dealing with within the organization.
So your approach is very thorough, and you seem to have come up with innovative ways to make it as quick as well to do this. Is there ever times where you see an obvious flow issue and you go quickly to implementing a solution for that before it might take time to do the more full comprehensive assessment?
Yeah, so his question was, have you ever gone in and saw a flow issue and addressed that before you've gone through the comprehensive analysis? Yes, I have. I had one company that was in a severe cash constraint, and I said to them, you need to trust me that the actions that we're going to do are the correct actions before we go through the buy-in process. And what I found was that we floundered. So I wouldn't recommend doing implementation before we get full buy-in, because you don't get the leadership support that you need to get the initiatives going and get the results.
So first of all, I just wanted to compliment you on great integration of TOC and Lean in parts of Six Sigma. I think that we have so much to learn. Integration was what we discussed in the last plenary session, and I think this is a wonderful example of that. That's very powerful.
Thanks.
I think also the throughput calculation at the beginning sort of shows the promise to your client too, if they follow through. But I wanted to sort of make the argument that about your point about the essentiality or essentialness, the criticality of leadership buy-in. And what I want to argue is that, and see how you respond, is that that's true today, but I'm not sure that's going to be true tomorrow. In other words, if you look at the way things are happening in terms of distributed leadership, in terms of the way that delegation has to take off because things are moving way too fast, we need to allow our subordinates to make decisions and take actions within their realm, right? Dan Pink talks about the power of purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And so my question to you is, can you challenge that assumption that we have to get leadership buy-in? You're already in enough to do a project. Can you just do a project with those people and let them be the ambassadors and let the success speak for itself, or do you really need to have buy-in before you come?
Yeah, so I really love what WiseTech is doing, right? Let the company integrate themselves. So my future state would be, we don't even need to go in there, give them the tools to do it themselves. I still think there needs to be some level of leadership buy-in. or agreement that we need to get better. I don't need the details of all the gold tree. I don't need the management level, the leadership level to understand that. I just need their commitment. Yes, we need to get better.
But maybe it doesn't need to be so profound.
Right, right.
What's the range of companies?
What's the range of companies?
Revenue-wise.
Revenue-wise, so my target market is from like 4 million in annual revenue to 50 million. 50, yeah, 50. So I think somebody made a comment in one of the presentations that 80% of the companies are less than 500 employees, right? So that's sort of my target. I'm not going after the big companies.
Do you have a similar categorization approach when it comes to culture? Like, how are you assessing the culture and how it sounded like it wasn't a major component of your analysis? Just out of curiosity.
So he asked if I had a categorization for culture. I'm actually working on that because I had a company ask me to, can you train on culture? It's like, not right now, but I can think about that. So yes, I'm trying to work on categorization for culture. So if anybody has input on that, I'd be really interested in hearing. So I did one company, I would categorize the management and leadership relationship as fire and gasoline. That's an extremely difficult environment. And the actions that we took, right? So in that case, we had to have the first actions have extremely high impact. By doing that, I got at least some communication between management and leadership, like, hey, they finally listened to us. But anybody that has anything on culture, I'd be very interested in having discussions with you, because that's an important topic. Any other questions?
My observation or thought is maybe it depends upon what the company is like. If it's a top-down sort of environment, then really getting that high-level buy-in would probably absolutely be necessary. The company is not quite as top-down, maybe it's not to the degree.
Yep. So to your point, right, it's like, I think if we understand the culture, maybe the approach can be modified, right? We don't need to go through the full buy-in process, right? Pieces of it is good enough. All right, I'm all about good enough. Don't want to be caught up in analysis paralysis. A good enough is good enough to get started and move. Okay, that's it. Thanks everyone for coming.